Hey guys, greetings from Pentagon City, which is just across from the Pentagon. I'm having a little lunch, and unfortunately it's raining, and it's going to be a big storm today. Tornadoes, thunderstorms, all that. It's not really a great day to go outside, but we can find something to do inside if we try hard enough. Hey guys, greetings from the campus of Georgetown University, where we just took a look at the spire. We're gonna make our way down through commercial Georgetown, maybe walk on the canal and head to the White House. That is, unless we get soaking wet today. It's a little Learjet coming in to Reagan National. The weather forecast is for thunderstorms bordering on tornadoes. So over there is Holy Trinity. That is a Catholic church here in the Georgetown area. It's not directly associated with the university, it's kind of an independent. And next to this is the Holy Trinity School, which is, I think, K through 8. It's a Catholic private school. You may have seen this in the famous viral video, Teacher Makes Basketball Shot, Kids Get Hot Chocolate. Yeah, that third grade teacher who swung a half quarter and all half-court shot, all her kids got hot chocolate and they all went mental when she scored. That took place at the Holy Trinity School here in Georgetown. Some of you may have noticed my new hat. It's a very Georgetown hat. It's for the Tombs. The Tombs is a restaurant here in Georgetown that is well known by students and alums. It was kind of the inspirational setting for St. Elmo's Fire, the movie, and it is a place that's near and dear to every Georgetown student. They used to have good milkshakes, but right now I don't know what's up. They're on a reduced staff. The Tombs is right over here, down this staircase. Now across the street from the Tombs is the Exorcist house. That is the home where they filmed the movie The Exorcist. It's now owned by the university. Oh wow. And next to that house is the Transformer house, where this guy has set up 2 transformers in front of his home, much to his neighbors' not amusement. And then I just noticed this on the roof. There's another one up on the roof. Who's that? Is it a Decepticon or something on the roof? Anyway, let's go take a closer look at these. There's been a series of lawsuits against by the community association, saying that the 2 transformers in front of his house actually were on public land and had to be removed. He told them to get stuffed. It's still in the courts, I think. It's made of old auto parts. It's pretty insane. There's one on the roof now. But let's go back over to the Exorcist house, yeah? Some of you may remember my Halloween video where I went live from this place. This is the Exorcist steps. The steps are famous in the movie. People have been putting up things. Stairs are killer. They are killer if you're jogging. And in the movie they had kind of an important role. Let's walk down them, yeah? Ooh. Oh, here comes that wind. Like I said, we got like tornadoes forecast for tonight. Tornadoes and thunderstorms, maybe. It's a little bit north and a little bit south of DC. We might get in that little protective bubble. Then again, we might not. Maybe we'll get clobbered tonight with a big storm. I think there's about 80 of these steps. Ugh. And we're safely down. Those steps are pretty huge. Let's go down this way, yeah? So this huge building down here has these giant windows. It wasn't built as giant windows. Those were built as doors. Man, the jets are loud today. The reason is that this is the car barn, yeah? And the car barn was where the trolley cars used to come for storage and maintenance as part of the Georgetown Union Station trolley tracks that used to run through here. I showed you some of the right-of-way the other day up to Glen Echo Amusement Park, but this was sort of the headquarters. It's now owned by the university. It's a bunch of offices and classrooms and such. You have to basically know the car barn was for trolleys, though if you come down to this one big door, there's still a bit of a clue. That clue is the tracks. The trolley tracks are still visible in the entrance to the parking garage. Yep, so that's where the trolleys used to go in through this big door to get worked on and whatnot. Sadly, the trolleys are no more. Everybody rides a big Horkin bus. No fun in that. So guys, here we are in Francis Scott Key Park, and you guys told me yesterday that these are probably daffodils, all these yellow flowers, and then there's some tulips. Tulips are popping up over here on my right in this park. And there's a little gazebo here. Not a gazebo, I don't know what you would call this. An archway. There is a statue of Francis Scott Key here. For those overseas, Francis Scott Key wrote our national anthem. He is the lawyer who was negotiating a peace treaty or peace agreement between the British and the Americans in Baltimore Harbour when Fort McHenry was attacked. And he wrote a little ditty about the flag was still there by the dawn's early light or whatnot, and that became the national anthem of the United States. And this is Francis Scott Key Park. Yeah, so his house was just the other side of the bridge, and now we're in the park, which is on this side. This was a trail that went down. That's number 2. This was the port down here, and this was a ferry to Virginia before the bridge existed. Interesting. Now this building over here is famous right now because this, you see it flying the Ukrainian flag, but that is actually the Ukrainian embassy. This is the Embassy of Ukraine, and this is where a lot of effort has been going on over the last few days, the last few weeks, and a lot of supporters have come out and left mementos outside the Ukrainian embassy, most notably sunflowers, national flower of Ukraine. And this has only grown and grown. So this is Embassy of Ukraine. And there are flowers everywhere. Now, interestingly enough, if you're really interested in Ukraine, you can sign up here to join the Territorial Defense Forces of Ukraine. Scan that QR code, I'll give it to you in big letters. Scan that QR code, you go to a Google form where you can sign up to join the army. Some kid has drawn his picture of happy Ukrainian tanks blowing up Russian tanks. Go for it. And then down here, all the flowers. Woo! And there goes the sign. It is windy. I should knock it in. Windy day. Okay, well, that sign blew off. Now here is Forrest Marbury House. This is part of the Ukrainian embassy as well. Forrest Marbury was the guy in Marbury versus Madison. Marbury versus Madison was the Supreme Court case that gave the Supreme Court the power basically to overrule congressional actions and presidential actions. Marbury versus Madison is basically the cornerstone of all judicial review. 1,000 cranes from people in Japan. My God, they folded 1,000 cranes as a symbol of peace. So over there across the street here at 33rd and M, that is Georgetown Cupcake. That was made famous by a reality TV show called Georgetown Cupcake. And even today, lines out the door to get overpriced cupcakes. They're good. I mean, they're not like waiting in line good, but they're good. Anyway, that's Georgetown Cupcake. And this is M Street, the heart of commercial Georgetown, which is quite quiet nowadays. These are tulips, I know that. Oh, the canal is dry. Ugh. Which means it's kind of ugly right now. waiting for spring, and then they'll flood the canal again. But for right now, it's just a trickle. A trickle with traffic cones, abandoned scooters. Now down here, a lot of the old buildings have names like paper mill, flour mill, sugar mill, or whatever. These are the old mill warehouses that used to serve the port of Georgetown when Georgetown was a operational port. Yeah, that's actually the paper mill restaurant, or paper mill apartments and offices. So this is the Whitehurst Freeway. That's one of the few elevated freeways here in Washington, D.C. But you often see movie makers will come down here to film because they want that gritty kind of East Coast urban edge, kind of like, you know, New York City or whatever. This is kind of one of the few places you can get that true under the elevated freeway look in Washington. All right, let's go down to this park. I think technically this is a national park along the shores here. Of course, in DC, pretty much every federal park is a national park. They're not like Yellowstone in size. They're more like a city block. Now this Italian restaurant down here, Fiola Mare, you've seen pictures of this because that's where Joe Biden went to dinner one night after he went to church. And he came out not wearing a mask in the middle of the COVID mask restrictions. So a lot of people were like, what's he doing? What's he doing? And that was this restaurant down here in Washington Harbour on the waterfront. It's supposed to be pretty nice. I haven't eaten there. The statue is pretty cool. If you look at it just the right way, it takes the shape of a human face. Yeah? Mother Earth is the name of the statue. It's very windy. We haven't seen any helicopters in a while. It's a bummer. So this is the boardwalk here at Washington Harbour, and then this statue I think is called Flight or something like that. It's supposed to be like an airplane or a jet or a rocket. It's a bit weird public art sort of thing. Behind it you see the flags of Norway and Sweden, as that's the House of Sweden, the Swedish embassy, and I believe the Norwegians actually occupy some of that as their embassy, or they have their embassy up by the vice presidents. So the House of Sweden has a kind of an open house of Swedish manufacturers and designers. They display on the ground floor. If you want to see what's being made in Sweden, you can go to the House of Sweden. It's not IKEA stuff, it's other stuff, better stuff. Back here you can see some of the eights for the different rowing teams. Georgetown, the private high schools, public high schools even in this area, they all have crew teams. Those things aren't cheap. So this giant complex you see before me, this is the Watergate, east and west buildings. And yes, this was the scene of the infamous break-in of the Democratic National Committee headquarters, which I believe was located in about the middle level up there at that point. The Watergate burglars, they had a commander who was in this building, which at the time I think was a Howard Johnson's. Now it's a dorm or apartment condos. And he was watching from binoculars across the way as the Watergate burglars got arrested by DC police officers. And that started one heck of a big crisis. So here, the corner of 24th and H is the center of the world. Well, at one time it was the center of the world. You see, this was the American meridian. Back in the days before Greenwich, the United States decided we are the center of the world and marked a meridian line. Well, basically right here. This was the American meridian. And this was the dividing between the eastern and western hemispheres as decided by the US Navy and the US government. Now, the old Naval Observatory used to be on Navy Hill. Now it's moved up to where the Vice President is. And but this was the American meridian until we gave in to the British and accepted Greenwich Mean Greenwich Mean Time. So as we pass over 23rd Street, we enter the campus of George Washington University. All of these buildings around here are part of GW, George Washington, which is a private school here right next to the White House. I have to say that the student body numbers are getting back to normal. This is about the level of crowds you would see on the campus pre-COVID. I'm sure there's some students who are still remote, but definitely a lot who came back and are back in full school mode. So over there is the George Washington University Law School. That's the law school building. I think that's an engineering building back there, and this is a little quad. GW is more of an urban campus. It doesn't really have the big grassy quads like you see at big public state schools and stuff. But they do have a little bit of grassy area to hang out, play frisbee, be college students. All right, where are we at? This is 20th Street, 4 more blocks to the White House. So I think you guys informed me that those red trees we saw yesterday were red buds, and there is a whole grove of red buds, all in pink and purple bloom. And they're red buds because I think they bud on the actual bark of the tree. Yeah, if you go over and look at like on the limbs, it's not just on the branches, but it's actually on the bark of the tree. You actually have some budding. Let's see if we can show you that. Yeah, a little dark. There we go. Pretty cool. All right, let's cross the street before we get killed. I'm gonna just cross here. I just read that the World Bank has gone back to 50% status. 50% of the employees are expected to show up for work, I think starting tomorrow, April 1st. Or they work like 50% of the time in the office. So that is a big change. Most of DC is still work from home. But for the World Bank Group to go back, that's thousands of more people downtown every day. That'll help the local businesses quite a bit. Federal government is still extreme telework options, but maybe that'll start to change this summer as the case numbers go down, hopefully. Now, the big question is whether the World Bank cafeteria will reopen. The World Bank has an amazing cafeteria with chefs from all over the world, and they cook Asian, Latin American, African, European food, American food. Getting an invite to the World Bank cafeteria is pretty cool. A lot of people try to angle off their friends who work there to get invited to go have lunch. Eating healthy. Hey guys, just had to take a little salad break, second lunch break. Anyway, guess what? We're here. Yeah, we're here at the White House. That's the new executive office building and the Renwick Gallery of Art. I believe that's a Smithsonian gallery. And then, of course, the Eisenhower building, which is next to the White House. Let's make our way down Pennsylvania Avenue and see what's up. Now, for months, you've been seeing pictures of Washington, D.C. as a ghost town, no cars on the road. That's the road to Virginia. And as you can see, it's chock-a-block full of cars all the way down to the tidal basin. So over there is Blair House. We'll talk more about that in a few days. Let's go down here. Wow, look at those trees. Remember that? Last week those trees were blazing white, and now they're basically green, yeah? So quick. So quick the last 48 hours that the weather's gotten warm. Let's see what's going on here. No marine. There's a stakeout. Pretty quiet day out here. Oops. There's a group going in for something. So, pretty quiet once again. This fountain still ongoing. It's the end of March. Should be finished. I think they extended a little bit. But hopefully they'll take this thing down. Because the conduits are done on the south one. Oh, some Ukrainian protesters with their Ukrainian flags. This guy's protesting his case. Same old, same old. Bunch of dogs out here. Police dogs messing with the walking dogs. Weather's getting rougher over that way. We may have to make back to Georgetown post haste. Now, since we went to see Francis Scott Key's house in Georgetown, we'd be remiss not to go to this yellow house. This is the Taylor house, and this was owned by the Taylor family. It was kind of a very popular place for Washington political leaders to come, socialize and whatnot. And one day, a very famous man, Francis Scott Key's son, came over here. And Francis Scott Key's son was the attorney for the District of Columbia. And it was right about this tree he ran into Congressman Sickles from New York. Now, they shared something in common. They both were very familiar with Congressman Sickles' wife. Yeah, that thing ended right here where Congressman Sickles shot Francis Scott Key's son dead. Right here at this tree. He was taken into Taylor House where he actually died. And Congressman Sickles was arrested. But Congressman Sickles pled temporary insanity. He said, I was temporarily insane and thus not guilty of the crime. And the courts bought it. It was the first successful use of temporary insanity in the United States. And it came from Francis Scott Key's murder, Francis Scott Key's son's murder, right here by this house. Now, this over here is Dolly Madison's house. President Madison's wife lived here, and in the dining room here, well, this is kind of famous because this was NASA's first headquarters, National Aviation and Space Administration. They took Dolly Madison House as their headquarters, and in that dining room is where the Mercury 7 astronauts were introduced to the general public for the very first time. Right here, a stone's throw away from the White House. Hey, let's go over to St. John's Church. I haven't talked about this building in a long time, but it is pretty famous, this yellow house. Okay, so you see this yellow house over here? It's now part of St. John's Church, the church next door. But at one time, this was Ashburton House, okay? It was the residence of Lord Ashburton until about, I think it was 1842. And that's when they culminated the Webster-Ashburton Treaty. Webster-Ashburton is the treaty that set the dividing line between the United States and Canada. And Lord Ashburton lived right over there in that house. A lot of major deals between, this was actually, I think, originally was the British legation. So it was before they had an embassy. The British legation was located here. And that's where they set up like the boundary lines of the Great Lakes were decided in that house. And anyway, it was acquired by the church in like the 1950s and renovated. And now it is just protected. I think there was a fire lit in Ashburton House and in St. John's Church during the George Floyd protests. They were quickly extinguished by other protesters. This building, however, was not extinguished. This building was a Park Service field office and restroom, and it was torched and has not been rebuilt. And I don't know when or if this thing is ever going to be rebuilt. It's been quite a while. Let's go across the street into Black Lives Matter Plaza. which is District of Columbia name for 16th Street here in front of the White House. This is St. John's Church, the Church of the Presidents. I believe almost like every president in history has gone to church here at one time or another. This was the scene of Donald Trump taking a photograph with the Bible following the clearing of the George Floyd protesters. And it now lies not on 16th Street, but as the District of Columbia has renamed it, Black Lives Matter Plaza. And that takes up the next 2 blocks of 16th Street. And I read that several of the organizations here, like the AFL-CIO, have actually changed their address from 16th Street to Black Lives Matter Plaza. Now this road is maintained by the District of Columbia government, not the federal government. And it is starting to rain. Shoot. Okay, we've gone to Plan B, which is a bicycle. Plan B bicycle. I was going to walk back, but I don't think I have very long before the thunderstorm arrives. Winds and rains and tornadoes and cats and dogs living together in sin, all that sort of stuff. I'm going to just make my way back to Georgetown and then back home. So pedestrian traffic downtown is still a little light. That's kind of how it is down here. It's a car-centric downtown, but the number of cars is definitely up. Definitely quite a bit more than we're used to. I think in another month we're going to be back near pre-pandemic levels of people down here. And into Georgetown we go. Bells are ringing. I don't know what that was. More storm clouds over there. Most of the storm though comes that direction. That's the west. There's a Rock Creek, still in rush hour configuration. And back we go into Georgetown. This is the Four Seasons Hotel where a lot of foreign dignitaries stay when they visit Washington. I believe the Singapore Prime Minister was staying there the other day. Oh. Nice quiet street in Georgetown. Whew, what a wind. So this is an electric bike, but its battery has basically given out. As a result, it's now a 75-pound bike, which is not really pleasant to ride. I think the vice president just got back. Either heavy traffic or the VP just blocked traffic. So you can see one of the Secret Service vehicles heading, that's actually one of the jammer vehicles, making its way back to the garage in the back of the U.S. Naval Observatory. They must have just gotten off their motorcade duty. Just like that, the sun appears, and then the sun goes back behind the clouds. Still, quite pretty day. So guys, another day in the big city, not a lot going on. We'll be out again tomorrow. I'm thinking Marine 2 and Marine 1 might be off tomorrow on Friday. Who knows? We'll try. Thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.